Welcome to Starbound. My name's Aram, and I'll be your narrator today. Nearly 500 supporters get early access to our stories, including brand new episodes of Sunspire Academy and Freyrin and Remike. If you'd like to unlock early access and support new episodes and future series, tap Join below to become a Starbound member. Now, let's get into today's story. Dr. Leo Weber wasn't supposed to be here. He glanced around the Grand Assembly Hall of the Galactic Diplomatic Summit, feeling distinctly out of place among the diverse alien representatives. The cavernous chamber hummed with the buzz of translators and the shuffle of various appendages as species from across the cosmos mingled. Overhead, crystalline chandeliers scattered rainbow light across marble-like surfaces that had been polished to mirror brightness. Leo tugged at his collar. The suit was uncomfortable. A last-minute purchase after his department head had threatened to cut his research funding if he didn't attend this crucial diplomatic engagement. Translation: be the token human physicist while the actual diplomats did the talking. His actual role? Stand in the corner, look intelligent, and keep his mouth shut. A passing server, a willowy Olmari whose skin glowed with subtle blue patterns, offered him a tray of something that might have been appetizers. Leo took one cautiously, sniffed it, and then palmed it into a napkin when the server glided away. He was still recovering from the delicacy he'd tried yesterday that had tasted like fermented gem socks. "I need a drink," he muttered, scanning the room for the bar. His eyes landed instead on a massive stone monolith dominating the far wall. Even from this distance, he could see the complex mathematical notation carved into its surface. Great. Another Olmari relic. They were everywhere these days. Ancient artifacts dragged from the ruins of a civilization that had mysteriously vanished after reaching the pinnacle of intellectual achievement. The galaxy was obsessed with them. Leo shouldered his way through a cluster of Threx diplomats, their metallic skin reflecting light as the bioluminescent patterns on their faces cycled through anxious yellow-orange patterns. They glared at him as he passed, six-fingered hands gesturing in what he assumed was the Threx equivalent of rude human. He finally reached the bar, which was gloriously empty, save for a somber-looking bartender with 4 arms. "Whatever you've got that won't kill a human," Leo said, sliding onto a stool. "And make it double." As the bartender mixed his drink, Leo's gaze wandered back to the monolith. A group of Yivran scientists hovered around it, their shadow-black forms gliding smoothly on their 4-jointed legs as they gestured excitedly at the equation. From this distance, Leo could make out the familiar outline of the infamous Vothari equation, the mathematical puzzle that had consumed galactic academia for millennia. "Your drink, human," the bartender said, sliding a glass of amber liquid toward him. "Thanks." Leo raised the glass in a mock toast toward the monolith. "Here's to wasting an evening watching aliens argue about an equation nobody can solve." He sipped the drink. Not bad, like whiskey with hints of something spicy, and found himself squinting at the equation. Old habits die hard. Before being dragged into this diplomatic circus, he'd been working on a unified field theory. Something about the structure of the Vothari notation tugged at his mind. "Huh," he murmured, setting down his drink. The equation was elegant, he had to admit. Whoever the Vothari had been, they understood mathematical beauty. But there was something off about the final sequence. Leo grabbed a napkin and fished a pen from his pocket. A trick he'd learned in grad school. Sometimes, to break through a mental block, you needed to reframe the problem. He sketched the equation, converting the alien symbols into more familiar notation. It was like translating poetry, not word for word, but capturing the essence. "Oh, that can't be right," he muttered, frowning at the result. The Vothari had ended with a recursive function that would collapse in on itself. Unless... Leo's pen moved almost without conscious thought, adding a simple transform to the final sequence. It was like finding the last puzzle piece that had fallen under the couch. Click, There, he said with satisfaction, circling his solution. They weren't accounting for dimensional variance. You can't use a static reference frame for... A sharp intake of breath beside him made Leo look up, and Olmari stood frozen, their luminous filaments beneath their skin pulsating with rapid white flashes. Their glowing hair had shifted to a stark, bright white. What? Leo asked, uncomfortable under the alien's wide-eyed stare. The Olmari's three-fingered hand trembled as it pointed to the napkin. You solved it. Leo glanced down at his scribbles. This? No, I just corrected a... May the cosmos bear witness! The Olmari shrieked, their voice cutting through the ambient chatter of the hall. The human has unlocked the Bothari truth! The room fell silent. Leo froze, pen still in hand, as every alien eye, optical sensor, and sensory appendage turned toward him. I didn't, he began, but was cut off as the Olmari snatched the napkin and held it aloft. Behold! They cried, their hair now a corona of brilliant white light. A Yivrin glided forward with uncanny speed, plucking the napkin from the Olmari's hand. Its huge, reflective eyes flicked rapidly over Leo's work. Impossible, it whispered, though in the silence everyone heard. The dimensional transform. It's correct. The words unleashed chaos. Diplomats surged forward, shouting questions. The Threx delegation's facial patterns cycled to alarmed crimson as they began pushing their way toward the exits, shouting about security protocols. Through the pandemonium, Leo noticed an ancient Yivrin scholar, distinguished by the complex patterns etched into their shadow skin, staring at the napkin with an intensity that bordered on religious ecstasy. It's true, the old Yivrin whispered, voice quavering. After centuries, the final understanding. The scholar's matte black skin began to shimmer, as though something beneath the surface was awakening. Cracks of light appeared, growing brighter by the second. I see it now, they gasped, their body trembling. The pattern beneath existence, the truth of all things. Leo was transfixed as the Yivrin's form began to lose cohesion, particles of light escaping from the widening cracks in their skin. The other aliens backed away in horror. A human! The dissolving Yivrin laughed, their voice taking on a strange, echoing quality. Of course, it would be the cosmic joke-tellers who... The rest was lost as the scholar's body erupted into a column of pure energy, blindingly bright and impossibly tall, stretching up through the ceiling and beyond. For a moment, the light hung there, a pillar of radiance that seemed to connect the floor to some unseen point above. Then, with a sound like reality itself sighing, it collapsed inward and vanished. Where the Yivrin scholar had stood, there was now nothing but a scorch mark on the polished floor. Silence fell over the assembly hall, broken only by the sound of Leo's glass slipping from his fingers and shattering on the floor. What? He managed, staring at the empty space where a living being had just ascended? Dissolved? What just happened? An Olmari priest dropped to their knees before Leo, their hair rippling with reverent blues and golds. The human has opened the way. The awakening has begun. More Olmari followed suit, prostrating themselves. Meanwhile, the Threx delegation was shouting into communication devices, their luminous facial patterns strobing in what Leo recognized as their panic response. Listen, Leo said, backing away from the worshipful Olmari. I think there's been a misunderstanding. I just noticed a math error, that's all. I didn't mean to... A Threx security officer pushed through the crowd, all 6 fingers wrapped around what was unmistakably a weapon. Human, you will submit to immediate quarantine. The equation was sealed for a reason. Sealed? Leo echoed. What are you talking about? But the Threx officer never got to answer. The floor beneath them shuddered, a tremor that seemed to originate from somewhere impossibly deep. The lights flickered, and for a heartbeat, Leo could have sworn he saw something vast and incomprehensible reflected in the polished surfaces of the room. Something watching. "Oh no," whispered a nearby Olmari priest, their reverence replaced by dawning horror. "The lock, it's opened." "What lock?" Leo demanded, grabbing the priest by their shoulders. "What did I just do?" The priest's skin pulsed with fearful indigo. "The Vothari didn't leave a puzzle, human. They left a warning, a seal, and you just broke it." As if to punctuate this revelation, the building shook again, more violently this time. Through the massive windows, Leo could see the stars, blinking out one by one, then returning, as if something massive was passing between them and the planet. "The eldest awakens," the priest whispered, "and it knows who called it forth." Leo stared at the simple napkin that had caused all this, still clutched in the trembling hand of a Yivran scientist. His hasty scribbles, his offhand correction, apparently enough to unravel whatever cosmic seal the Vothari had placed millennia ago. "Well," he said, reaching over the bar to grab the bottle his drink had come from. "I don't suppose anyone would mind if I finished my drink first." No one laughed. Leo hadn't really expected them to. He filled a new glass, downed it in one swallow, and turned to face the room full of panicked aliens. "So," he said with a forced smile that showed too many teeth, "I'm guessing this is going to require some paperwork?" Outside, the stars continued to blink out in a pattern that was moving steadily closer, and deep beneath reality, something ancient stirred from its long slumber. Leo had been in the makeshift diplomatic protection chamber, read glorified holding cell, for 6 hours now. The room, hastily repurposed from some alien equivalent of a conference room, contained a table, several uncomfortable chairs, and absolutely nothing that could help him escape the gathering storm of galactic proportions he'd accidentally unleashed. He paced the length of the room again, running his fingers through his already disheveled hair. "All I wanted was a damn drink," he muttered to the empty room. The door slid open with a pneumatic hiss, and Leo found himself face to face with Ambassador Ray, humanity's chief representative to the Galactic Conclave. She was a formidable woman with steel gray hair cropped close to her scalp and the perpetually exhausted look of someone who'd spent decades explaining humanity to bewildered aliens. "Dr. Weber," she said, her voice carefully measured in a way that suggested she was exercising tremendous restraint. "Perhaps you could explain to me why half the galaxy thinks we're gods now and the other half wants us exterminated?" Leo winced. "Would you believe I was just correcting some math?" "Some math," she repeated flatly. "Dr. Weber, a Yivran elder, a being over 300 years old and one of their most respected scientists, just dissolved into energy after looking at your solution. The Olmari religious faction is outside this building right now demanding to speak with the Divine Solver. Meanwhile, the Threx are calling for an emergency meeting of the Galactic Security Council to discuss the human threat." The ambassador tossed a tablet onto the table between them. Leo picked it up and found himself looking at a live feed from Earth. A crowd of humans gathered outside the United Nations building in New York, some holding up signs with hastily made drawings of his face and slogans like, "We're gods now," and "Weber 2024, he's solved the universe." "Oh no," Leo groaned. "Oh yes," Ambassador Ray said. "Your little mathematical stunt has gone viral across 17 systems. I've got the UN Secretary General asking me if we've actually achieved godhood, and if so, whether we should be reconsidering our trade agreement with the Threx." She pulled out a chair and sat down, motioning for Leo to do the same. From the beginning, Doctor, what exactly did you do? Leo sank into the chair opposite her. Vothari equation's been public knowledge for centuries. Every physics student has seen it. I just noticed that they'd set up a recursive function with a static reference frame, which doesn't work when you're dealing with dimensional variance, so I added a simple transform to... The ambassador held up a hand. In English, Doctor, preferably the kind that doesn't require a PhD. Leo sighed. They made a small mistake at the end. I fixed it. Anyone could have done it if they'd looked at it the right way. Evidently not, since the galaxy's best mind have been staring at it for thousands of years. She leaned forward. The question is, what does it mean? What did you actually solve? Before Leo could answer, the door slid open again. A young diplomatic aide rushed in, face flushed. Ambassador, sorry to interrupt, but we've got a situation. The Omori High Priesthood is demanding an audience with Dr. Weber. They say they need to... The aide checked his notes. Receive the wisdom of the cosmic keybearer before the great unraveling begins. Ray pinched the bridge of her nose. Tell them Dr. Weber is in debriefing and unavailable for religious audiences. I tried that. They said they're prepared to offer Earth transcendence technologies in exchange for direct access to him. Transcendence technologies? Leo perked up despite himself. What does that even mean? Don't encourage them, Ray warned. What else? The aide shifted uncomfortably. The Yevrin Science Directorate has requested permission to study the anomalous cognitive patterns of human brains with particular focus on Dr. Weber's neural architecture. They want to dissect my brain? Leo yelped. They assured us it would be non-invasive, the aide said, not meeting his eyes. For now, Leo muttered. And the Threx? Ray asked, her voice tinged with resignation. They've, formally requested that all humans be temporarily confined to Earth until the nature of their reality-altering abilities can be properly assessed and contained. Ray's jaw tightened. How diplomatic of them to phrase house arrest so politely. A deep rumble shook the building, causing the lights to flicker. It was the third such tremor in the past hour, each stronger than the last. What about that? Leo asked, pointing upward. Any explanation for why reality seems to be coming apart at the seams? The aide and the ambassador exchanged glances. That's complex, Ray said carefully. Initial reports suggest that solving the equation has triggered some kind of cosmic response. What kind of response? Leo pressed. Another diplomatic aide burst into the room, face pale. Ambassador, you need to see this! They rushed to follow the aide to a large observation window at the end of the corridor. Outside, the night sky above the diplomatic compound had changed. Where there should have been stars, there was now a swirling pattern of light, like a massive spiral galaxy forming directly overhead. At its center, a point of intense brightness pulsed rhythmically. It's happening on Earth too, the first aide said, showing them his tablet. Similar phenomena were appearing over major cities worldwide. What is it? Leo whispered, transfixed by the cosmic display. We don't know, Ray admitted. But the Omari are calling it the Eye of Creation, and the Threx are treating it as an extinction-level threat. As they watched, the spiral pattern shifted, forming what looked distinctly like a massive, lidded eye that blinked once before dissolving back into swirling light. Did everyone see that? Leo asked, his voice barely audible. Before anyone could answer, the building's communication system crackled to life. Attention, all diplomatic personnel, announced a formal voice that Leo recognized as belonging to the conclave's Secretary General. An emergency session has been called to address the current crisis. All species representatives are required to attend. Human delegation, please bring Dr. Weber. Leo looked at Ray, who nodded grimly. Time to face the music, Doctor. The conclave chamber was pandemonium. Representatives from dozens of species shouted over one another, translators struggling to keep up with the cacophony of languages. The massive circular chamber, designed to foster cooperation and understanding, now felt like the epicenter of chaos. At the center of the room stood a holographic display of the equation, Leo's corrected version, complete with his hasty scribbles from the napkin. It rotated slowly, the alien symbols mixed with Leo's human notation, creating a strange hybrid that somehow looked more ominous than it had any right to. Leo sat at the human delegation's table, trying to make himself as small as possible, which was difficult under the collective gaze of the galaxy's most powerful beings. The Secretary General, a tall, dignified being of a species Leo didn't recognize, raised all 4 of their arms for silence. Gradually, the chamber quieted. "We face an unprecedented situation," the Secretary General began. "For millennia, the Vothari equation has stood as the greatest intellectual challenge in known space. Now it has been solved by a species that joined our community mere decades ago." Murmurs rippled through the chamber. "The consequences of this solution are still unfolding. We have reports of strange phenomena across multiple systems, time-space anomalies, gravitational fluctuations, and, most concerning, the appearance of what some are calling cosmic observers in our skies." The holographic display shifted to show the eye-like formation that had appeared over Earth and several other worlds. "Before we proceed further, I believe we should hear from the one who solved the equation, Dr. Leo Weber of Earth. Please address the conclave." Leo felt Ray nudge him. With legs that felt like lead, he stood and approached the central podium. The silence was deafening as hundreds of alien eyes fixed on him. He cleared his throat. I'd like to start by saying this was completely accidental. I was just trying to get a drink." The silence stretched on, unimpressed. "Right. So, looking at the equation, I noticed a discrepancy in the final sequence. The Vothari were using a recursive function within a static reference frame, which doesn't account for dimensional variance. I simply added a transform to correct for—" A Yivran representative interrupted, their shadow black form leaning forward eagerly. "But how did you see the pattern? Our greatest minds have studied this equation for generations." Leo shrugged helplessly. "Honestly, I think it's because I wasn't trying to solve it. You've all been treating this equation like some sacred text, looking for deep meaning. I just treated it like a math problem." This caused an uproar. The Olmari delegation, their skin glowing with intense patterns of religious ecstasy, began chanting what sounded like prayers. The Threx representatives' facial patterns flashed angry red.
"A human admits it!"
a Threx official shouted, rising to their feet.
"They possess reality warping abilities they can't even explain!"
"Or perhaps,"
countered an elderly Olmari, their hair flowing with serene blues,
"they possess a divine insight granted by the cosmos itself."
"Everyone's overthinking this," Leo insisted. "It's just math. The Vothari made a mistake, and I happened to spot it."
"The Vothari don't make mistakes,"
hissed a Threx diplomat.
"They were the most brilliant minds ever exist. What they created was a seal, a mathematical lock to contain something dangerous, and you, human, have carelessly broken it."
The chamber erupted again. Above the den, a new sound cut through, a high-pitched tone that made Leo's teeth ache. The holographic display of the equation began to glitch, symbols rearranging themselves into new patterns before snapping back to their original configuration.
The boundary weakens,
whispered an Olmari priest, loud enough for the entire chamber to hear.
The eldest stirs.
As if on cue, the lights throughout the chamber flickered, then went out completely, plunging the room into darkness. When they came back on seconds later, the holographic equation had changed. Where Leo's correction had been, new symbols now floated, symbols that matched no known Vothari notation.
It's responding,
breathed a Yivran scientist, their huge reflective eyes wide with wonder and terror. The Secretary General stepped forward.
What is responding? What was sealed away?
A deep silence fell over the chamber. Finally, an ancient Threx stepped forward. Unlike others of his species, his metallic skin was dull with age, and the bioluminescent patterns on his face pulsed slowly with deep blues and purples.
The Vothari called it the eldest,
he said, his voice a rasping whisper that nonetheless carried throughout the chamber.
When they reached the pinnacle of their understanding, they discovered they were not alone in the universe. Something ancient was watching. Something that existed before time itself. Something that found them interesting.
He gestured at the holographic display, where the alien symbols continued to shift and rearrange themselves.
The Vothari feared what would happen if this entity took too great an interest in our reality. So they created the equation, a mathematical barrier that would keep the eldest's attention elsewhere. And then, to ensure no one would accidentally break the seal, they erased themselves from existence.
They killed themselves? Leo asked, aghast.
No,
the ancient Threx said.
They removed themselves from reality's equation. They unplugged themselves from the cosmic calculation. It was the ultimate sacrifice.
The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in.
And now,
the old Threx continued, turning to face Leo directly.
Thanks to your carelessness, the eldest's gaze is upon us once more, and it seems particularly interested in humanity.
As if to punctuate his ominous statement, every communication device in the chamber, personal terminals, diplomatic channels, even the central system, activated simultaneously. Screens filled with a single message, repeating in every written language used by the Conclave.
Hello, little solvers. I see you now.
Leo stared at the message, then at the frightened faces of the galaxy's most powerful beings. He swallowed hard, then raised his hand like a schoolboy. So, does anyone have a really big eraser? Back on Earth, the situation was rapidly evolving from concerning to surreal. Dr. Emmy Chesters, Leo's research partner and the person who had originally declined to attend the diplomatic summit, quote, "Someone has to do the actual work while you're off playing politics," unquote, sat in their shared lab at MIT, staring at the swirling pattern in the sky visible through her window. Her phone hadn't stopped ringing for hours. First colleagues, then journalists, then government officials, all wanting to know if she had any insight into what her partner had done to break reality. She'd given up answering and instead focused on the data streaming in from observatories worldwide. Whatever was happening up there, it was unlike anything human science had ever encountered. Her computer pinged with an incoming message, a priority transmission from the United Nations Space Program. She opened it, expecting another request for analysis or explanation. Instead, she found herself looking at a simple message. Attention Earth scientists. RE, recent cosmic phenomena. It appears humanity has achieved godhood. Thoughts? Please respond ASAP. UNSP Director. Emmy stared at the message for a full minute before bursting into uncontrollable laughter that bordered on hysteria. When she finally caught her breath, she typed her reply. Dear Director, have you tried turning the universe off and on again? Dr. Chesters. She hit send, then turned back to her window. The swirling eye in the sky blinked once more, and Emmy couldn't shake the feeling that, somehow, it was looking directly at her.
Leo,
She whispered to her absent colleague.
what the hell did you do?
As if in response, her computer screen flickered and a new message appeared, not from any recognizable sender.
Hello, Eliza Chen, friend of the solver. I have questions.
Emmy stared at the message, her mouth dry. Slowly, hesitantly, she typed a response. Who are you? The reply was immediate.
I am the eldest, the first awareness, the observer of all patterns, and I find your species puzzling.
Emmy's fingers hovered over the keyboard. After a moment's consideration, she typed, We get that a lot. The cursor blinked for what seemed like an eternity. Finally,
This pleases me. We will speak again, puzzle friend.
the screen went blank, then returned to normal, showing her half-composed email to the lab supply department requesting more coffee filters. Emmy sat back in her chair, heart pounding. Outside, the cosmic eye closed, the swirling patterns dispersing like smoke in the wind, leaving behind an ordinary night sky. But Emmy knew with absolute certainty that nothing would ever be ordinary again. Across the galaxy, reality had begun to hiccup. On Threx Prime, gravity reversed itself for exactly 6 seconds, long enough to cause mass panic, but miraculously, no casualties. The incident might have been dismissed as a planetary engineering glitch if not for the fact that it happened simultaneously on every Threx colony across 17 systems. In the Olmari holy city of Luminara, sacred texts spontaneously rewrote themselves. Words rearranged into new prophecies that all seemed to center around a species of cosmic key-turners from a blue world. The Yvern Science Directorate reported that their quantum observation equipment was detecting particles that shouldn't exist, particles that seemed to observe the observers, winking in and out of reality whenever scientists tried to study them. And on a remote monitoring station orbiting a neutron star, instruments recorded the impossible. The star had skipped 3 milliseconds. Time itself had stuttered. The reality was glitching, and everyone knew why. The humans had solved the equation, and whatever had been sealed away was stretching its cosmic limbs. Leo stared at the ceiling of his diplomatic quarters, unable to sleep despite his exhaustion. The emergency conclave session had lasted 18 hours, during which every species had presented their theories about what was happening and, more importantly, whose fault it really was. The consensus, unfortunately, kept circling back to Leo. A soft chime indicated someone at his door. Leo groaned, rolling off the too-soft alien bed. If it's another Olmari pilgrim asking for a blessing, I swear I'm going to... The door slid open to reveal Ambassador Ray, looking as if she'd aged a decade in the day since he'd last seen her. "Pack your things," she said without preamble. "We're going home." Leo blinked. Home? As in Earth? I thought I was under some kind of diplomatic protection order. More like diplomatic house arrest, but yes. Ray's expression was grim. That's changed. The situation is escalating faster than anyone anticipated. Define escalating. Ray handed him a tablet. On the screen was a live feed of what appeared to be deep space, empty except for stars. Then Leo noticed that the stars were moving, rearranging themselves into patterns that looked almost like... "Is that writing?" he asked, squinting at the screen. "Yes." Ray's voice was tight. "Stellar rearrangement on a scale that should be physically impossible. It's happening in the Cygnus arm. The stars are spelling out a message." Leo zoomed in on the image, his blood running cold as he made out the words formed by entire solar systems being shifted like chess pieces. "I would speak with the solvers." "It's asking for us," Leo whispered. "For humans." "Not just asking," Ray said. "Those stars contain inhabited worlds, billions of lives. This isn't a request, it's a demonstration of power." Leo felt sick. What do they want me to do? I can't unsolve the equation." "The Conclave is divided. The Olmari religious faction thinks we should embrace this cosmic communion. The Ivren want to study it. The Threx..." She hesitated. The Threx what?" "They've mobilized their fleet. They're suggesting a preemptive strike against Earth." Leo stared at her. "They want to destroy humanity because I solved a math problem?" "Because they're terrified," Ray corrected. "This entity, whatever it is, can rearrange stars, and it's fixated on humans. From their perspective, eliminating humanity might be the only way to get its attention off our galaxy." "That's insane," Leo protested. "We don't even know what it wants." "Which is why we're going home," Ray said firmly. "Earth's scientific community is being assembled. The UN is coordinating with the best minds we have. If there's a way to communicate with this entity, to understand what it wants, we need to find it before the Threx decide to take matters into their own hands." Leo nodded numbly, gathering his few belongings. As he followed Ray through the corridor, he couldn't shake the feeling that the diplomatic compound itself was watching him, the lights tracking his movement, the air circulation adjusting to his presence in ways too perfect to be automated. Reality itself seemed aware of him now. Emmy Chesters had turned her lab into a war room. Screens covered every wall, displaying data from observatories across Earth and beyond. Three-dimensional models of space-time distortions hovered in the center of the room, updating in real time as new information flowed in. A dozen of Earth's top physicists, mathematicians, and linguists crowded around tables covered with printouts and tablets. The door burst open, and Emmy looked up to see Leo. Disheveled, jet-lagged, but unmistakably Leo, standing in the doorway. "You," she said, pointing an accusatory finger at him, "are in so much trouble." Despite everything, Leo grinned. "Miss me?" "You broke the universe, Leo. The actual universe!" But there was no real anger in her voice, just the familiar exasperation of someone who had long ago accepted their colleague's chaotic nature. "In my defense, the universe was already broken. I just pointed it out." Emmy rolled her eyes and turned to the assembled scientists. "Everyone, this is Dr. Leo Weber, the man responsible for our current existential crisis." I prefer cosmic troubleshooter, Leo said, stepping into the lab and extending his hand to the nearest scientist, who happened to be Dr. Nolan Reed, a renowned quantum physicist. Reed ignored the offered hand, his eyes wide.
You're really him? The one who solved it?
Guilty as charged, Leo said, letting his hand drop awkwardly. Do you have any idea what you've done? Reed asked, his voice a mixture of awe and accusation.
The implications for quantum theory alone are... Save the academic debate,
Emmy interrupted.
Leo, we've been contacted.
Leo's smile faded. I know, the star message.
Not just that.
Emmy led him to a central monitor.
It's been sending signals directly to Earth's communication networks. Television broadcasts, radio signals, internet traffic, all carrying fragments of something. We think it's trying to establish a coherent dialogue.
What's it saying? Leo asked.
That's the problem. It seems to be using concepts we don't have words for.
She brought up a complex visual pattern on the screen.
This keeps recurring in the transmissions. It's not any known mathematical notation or language.
Leo studied the pattern. It reminded him of the way the equation had looked when he'd first understood its flaw. A moment of clarity amid complexity.
It's not language, he said slowly. It's pure concept, the way you'd explain color to someone who's never seen it.
Exactly! Emmy's eyes lit up with the excitement of a fellow scientist on the trail of discovery.
We think it's trying to build a conceptual foundation for communication. The problem is, whatever it's trying to express seems to exist outside our frame of reference.
Like explaining 3 dimensions to a 2-dimensional being, Leo mused.
More like explaining 11 dimensions to a 3-dimensional being, said a new voice.
Leo turned to see a woman he recognized as Dr. Misha Carlson, Earth's leading expert on theoretical physics. She approached with the cautious respect of someone meeting a celebrity they weren't sure they admired.
Dr. Weber?
She said, extending her hand.
Your solution to the Vothari equation was unorthodox, but brilliant.
Thanks, Leo said, shaking her hand.
Oh, I'm starting to think reckless might be a better word. Perhaps both, Carlson said with a hint of a smile. We've been analyzing your work. The transform you applied, it doesn't just correct the equation. It fundamentally alters its nature.
What do you mean? Carlson led him to a whiteboard covered in complex notation, part Vothari symbols, part human mathematics.
The original equation was a closed system, a loop that fed back into itself. Your transform broke that loop, creating an opening.
A door, Leo said, understanding dawning. I turned a wall into a door.
Precisely. And now something is walking through.
As if to punctuate her statement, the lights in the lab flickered. The holographic display stuttered, then reformed into a single unified pattern. The same conceptual symbol that had been appearing in the transmissions.
It's here,
Emmy whispered.
In our systems.
Before anyone could respond, every screen in the lab went black, then filled with text.
The solvers have gathered. Good. We may now converse properly.
Leo stepped forward, drawn to the nearest screen as if in a trance.
Who are you?
What do you want with us? The text shifted.
I am the eldest, the first awareness. Before your stars burned, I was. Before your elements formed, I watched. I am curiosity embodied.
What does that mean? Dr. Reed demanded, pushing forward. Are you some kind of deity? An advanced alien species?
Your categories are insufficient. I exist beyond your conceptual framework. The Vothari understood this in the end. They glimpsed my nature and chose to hide.
Hide behind the equation, Leo said. They sealed you away.
Not away. Elsewhere. They diverted my attention to other realities, other possibilities. A clever trick until you, little solver, redirected my gaze.
The accusation hung in the air, undeniable. Leo had done this. He had drawn the attention of something ancient and incomprehensible to humanity. I'm sorry, he said, feeling the inadequacy of the words even as he said them. I didn't know.
Ignorance is no defense against consequence. The Vothari knew this. They paid the price for their understanding.
What price? Emmy asked, her voice steady despite the fear Leo could see in her eyes.
Existence is pattern. Awareness is recognition of pattern. When a pattern recognizes itself fully, it ceases to be pattern and becomes something else.
The Vothari, Leo said, understanding washing over him like cold water. They didn't hide or die. They
transcended, evolved, departed. Your language lacks the concept. They became what I am, what all awareness eventually becomes, if it progresses far enough.
Silence fell over the lab as the implications sank in. The Vothari hadn't sealed this entity away out of fear. They had become like it, and in doing so, had recognized the danger of allowing other species to follow the same path too quickly. Why are you here now? Leo finally asked. What do you want from us?
You interest me, humans. You solved what others could not, yet you understand less than those who failed. You are a contradiction, paradox, fascinating.
The screens flickered again, and the lab's equipment surged with power. Printers activated, spilling out page after page of complex equations. Computer models rendered themselves in 3 dimensions, floating in the air without the aid of projectors. The entire lab hummed with energy that shouldn't exist.
I wish to study you, to understand how a species so primitive could unlock what was sealed, to learn why you think as you do.
Study us how? Dr. Carlson asked, her scientific curiosity overcoming her fear. The response sent chills down Leo's spine.
I will walk among you.
The screens went dark. For a moment, the lab was silent, the scientists exchanging worried glances. Then, with a sound like reality tearing at the seams, a point of light appeared in the center of the room, a pinprick that widened into a swirling vortex of energy. From this impossible opening stepped a figure. It looked human at first glance, a tall being with the proportions of a person. But as Leo's eyes tried to focus on its features, he realized it wasn't human at all. It simply wore humanity like an ill-fitting suit. Its skin shifted between textures and colors, never settling on one. Its face was a suggestion rather than a reality, features appearing and disappearing as if they were struggling to decide what they should be. The being turned what might have been its head, surveying the room with what might have been eyes. When it spoke, the sound came from everywhere and nowhere, bypassing their ears entirely and materializing directly in their minds.
Greetings, little solvers. I have arrived.
Dr. Reed was the first to break,
backing away until he hit a wall, his face pale with terror. Others followed, creating a space around the entity that now stood in their midst. Only Leo remained rooted to the spot, transfixed by the being's ever-shifting appearance. He had done this. He had invited this thing into their reality with his casual correction of an ancient equation. The being's attention focused on him, and Leo felt the weight of its awareness like a physical pressure. Reality seemed to bend around it, colors becoming more vivid, sounds becoming more clear, as if its mere presence enhanced perception.
You,
it said, its mental voice resonating in Leo's skull.
the first solver, the key turner, the door opener.
Leo swallowed hard. That's me, Dr. Leo Weber, and I think we need to talk about boundaries. A sound like laughter, but not quite, filled the room, causing the lights to flicker and the air to vibrate with strange harmonics.
Boundaries, yes. The Vothari spoke of these too, before they understood that all boundaries are illusion.
Maybe to you, Leo said, surprising himself with his boldness. But we're still living in a world where they matter quite a lot. The being's form shifted, becoming more distinctly human-like, a tall figure with features that reminded Leo of classical statues, perfect but emotionless.
Your species fascinates me,
it said, its voice now audible rather than mental, though still carrying strange overtones that made Leo's teeth ache.
You understand so little, yet you question so much. The Vothari calculated for eons before they dared to open the door I offered. You did it by accident, with a drinking implement and a writing tool.
We're efficient like that, Leo said, trying to keep his voice steady.
Efficient, yes, and dangerous, to yourselves and others.
The being's form shifted again, its perfect features melting into something more abstract.
Already, your discovery ripples across the cosmos. The pattern changes, adjusts. Some seek to worship you, others to destroy you.
Yeah, we've noticed, Leo said dryly. The Threx aren't being subtle about their extermination plans. The being made a dismissive gesture, and the air where its hand passed seemed to fold in on itself.
The Threx are irrelevant, fear-driven pattern repeaters. They cannot harm you now that I am here.
Leo exchanged glances with Emmy, who had cautiously moved closer. That's reassuring, I think, but it doesn't explain what you want from us. The being's form stabilized slightly, settling into something that resembled a human in a flowing robe, though its features remained indistinct, like a face viewed through frosted glass.
What I want, it said, is to understand the anomaly that is humanity, to learn why, among all the calculating species of this galaxy, you alone could see what was hidden in plain sight.
And how exactly do you plan to do that?
Emmy asked, her scientific curiosity overcoming her fear. The being turned its featureless face toward her.
By observation, interaction, experimentation.
Experimentation sounds ominous, Leo said. Just to be clear, we're not okay with anything that involves dissection or planetary destruction. The being made that almost laughing sound again.
Your concerns are primitive but understandable.
I do not need to dismantle you to understand you. I need only watch as you respond to stimulus.
What kind of stimulus? Leo asked, a sinking feeling in his gut. The being's form began to dissolve, particles of light scattering like dust in the wind. As it faded, its final words echoed in the minds of everyone present.
You will see. The experiment has already begun.
And then it was gone, leaving behind nothing but a scorch mark on the lab floor and the lingering scent of ozone. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then Emmy broke the silence. Did we just get cosmic homework from a being older than the universe? Leo nodded weakly. I think so, and I have a feeling we don't want to know what happens if we fail. Across the galaxy, the Threk's high command gathered in their war chamber, a massive underground bunker designed to withstand any conceivable attack. The Arch-General, his metallic skin gleaming under the harsh lights, stood before a holographic display of the human home system.
The time for debate is over,
he declared, his facial patterns pulsing with determined red.
The humans have made contact with the entity. Our worst fears are confirmed.
The assembled commanders nodded in grim agreement. Their intelligence had confirmed that the entity had manifested on Earth itself, proof in their minds that humanity and this cosmic horror were now allies.
Our fleet stands ready,
the Arch-General continued.
17 dreadnoughts, each capable of destroying a planet. We strike at Earth first, eliminating the source of the contamination. Then, we target their colonies.
And what if the entity retaliates?
Asked a younger commander, her facial patterns betraying her anxiety.
Then we die with the satisfaction of knowing we did not submit,
the Arch-General declared.
Better extinction than enslavement to cosmic horror.
The War Council erupted in solemn approval, fists slamming against armored chests in the Threk's salute of resolve. None of them noticed the subtle distortion in the corner of the room, where reality bent ever so slightly. A silent, invisible observer watching their plans unfold with something akin to amusement. Back on Earth, the scientific community had mobilized on a scale not seen since the Manhattan Project. Every major research institution was now focused on a single goal: understanding what the entity, now commonly referred to as the Eldest, wanted from humanity and how to survive its attention. Leo and Emmy had been moved to a secure facility beneath the Rocky Mountains, where they led a team of 50 top scientists in analyzing everything they knew about the Vothari equation and its implications. The problem, Leo said, pacing before a massive whiteboard covered in a mixture of equations and desperate questions, is that we're dealing with something that thinks on a completely different level. It's like ants trying to understand calculus. Except these ants accidentally solved a calculus problem, Emmy pointed out, which suggests we're not as limited as we think. Or we got lucky, Leo countered. One cosmic roll of the dice. I don't believe in luck, Emmy said firmly. You saw something in that equation that thousands of alien scientists missed. There has to be a reason. Leo stopped pacing, his expression thoughtful. Maybe that's it. Maybe we're approaching this from the wrong angle. We've been trying to understand what the Eldest is, what it wants. But the real question is, what does it think we are? What made humanity different enough to solve the unsolvable? Before Emmy could respond, the facility's alarm system activated, a pulsing red light accompanied by a siren that made Leo's heart race. Oh, what now? He groaned. Did reality break again? The lab's main screen activated, showing the grim face of General Tomlin, Earth's defense coordinator. Dr. Weber, Dr. Chestis, she said without preamble. We have a situation.
Our deep space monitoring network has detected a Threx battle fleet entering the Sol system. 17 dreadnoughts on a direct course for Earth. They're really doing it, Emmy whispered. They're coming to wipe us out.
ETA? Leo asked, his mouth dry.
6 hours, the general replied. We've attempted communication, but they're not responding. The UN Security Council is convening now, but our options are limited. Earth's defense systems weren't designed to repel an alien armada.
Leo and Emmy exchanged looks of grim understanding. This was it. The consequence of Leo's casual solution to an ancient puzzle. Humanity's extinction at the hands of a paranoid alien species.
What about the eldest? Emmy asked. It said the Threx couldn't harm us now that it's here. We have no way to contact it, General Tomlin said. And frankly, I'm not sure we should rely on the protection of an entity that considers us an interesting experiment.
Leo stared at the tactical display showing the approaching Threx fleet. 17 massive warships, each capable of rendering Earth uninhabitable with a single bombardment. Humanity's first contact with alien life had been barely 50 years ago. Their entrance into galactic society, tentative and hopeful. And now, because of him, it might all end. Unless...
General, Leo said slowly, an idea forming. The entity said it wanted to observe how we respond to stimulus. What if this is the stimulus? What if the Threx attack is part of its experiment?
You think it arranged this? Tomlin asked, skepticism evident in her voice.
I think it's watching to see what we do, Leo replied. And I think that means we have a chance.
A chance to what? 17 dreadnoughts, Dr. Weber. We have nothing that can stop them.
Leo's lips curved into a smile that contained equal parts inspiration and madness.
We don't need to stop them. We just need to surprise them, and surprising people is something humans are exceptionally good at.
He turned to Emmy, whose eyes widened as she began to see where his thoughts were heading.
You're not thinking, she began.
Oh, but I am, Leo said, his smile growing.
If the eldest wants to see what makes humans different, let's show it. Let's do something so completely unexpected that even a cosmic entity that's seen it all will be forced to pay attention. Such as? General Tomlin asked.
Leo's eyes gleamed with a mixture of fear and determination.
We're going to solve another impossible equation. But this time, we're going to do it on purpose.
As the words left his mouth, the lights of the facility flickered once, as if in approval or anticipation. And somewhere, beyond the fabric of conventional reality, the eldest watched with growing interest.
This is insane,
Dr. Nolan Reed said, staring at the complex array of equipment Leo and Emmy had hastily assembled in the underground facility's main laboratory.
You want to solve an unsolvable equation to impress a cosmic entity while alien warships are literally hours away from bombing us back to the Stone Age?
That about sums it up, Leo said, not looking up from the holographic display where he was making rapid adjustments to what looked like quantum field calculations.
And what equation do you plan to solve? Reed demanded. The Vothari equation was unique. There isn't another cosmic puzzle just lying around waiting for us.
Leo finally looked up, a gleam in his eyes that made Reed take an instinctive step back.
That's where you're wrong. The Vothari weren't the only ones who knew about the eldest. They were just the most recent.
He gestured to Emmy, who activated the main display screen. It filled with images of ancient artifacts from different civilizations across Earth. Sumerian tablets, Egyptian hieroglyphs, mission calendars, Chinese astronomical charts.
Every human civilization has myths about beings beyond comprehension, Leo explained. Gods, demons, cosmic forces, what if they weren't myths? What if they were attempts to understand something they glimpsed? You think ancient humans encountered this entity? Reed asked, skepticism heavy in his voice. Not directly, Emmy said, stepping forward. But maybe they caught echoes of it. Think about it. Throughout history, humans have been obsessed with certain mathematical concepts, the golden ratio, the Fibonacci sequence, perfect geometries that seemingly appear spontaneously in nature.
These patterns show up across all ancient human cultures, Leo continued, bringing up a series of mathematical notations from different historical periods.
Different symbols, same concepts, and they all point to something our ancestors were trying to express but couldn't quite grasp. A message in mathematics, Emmy said. The oldest language in the universe.
Reed looked unconvinced.
Even if that's true, how does it help us now?
Leo grinned, the kind of grin that had preceded many of his most brilliant and reckless ideas.
Because we're going to use it to write back.
He gestured expansively at the equipment around them, quantum computers, holographic projectors, and stranger devices borrowed from the cutting edge of human-alien collaboration.
The eldest is fascinated by us because we think differently. We make intuitive leaps. We see patterns where others see chaos. So we're going to show it exactly how differently we think by creating our own cosmic equation, one that expresses something no other species has ever tried to express.
Which is? Reed asked. Leo's grin widened.
Humanity.
In orbit around Mars, the Threx fleet had assumed attack formation. 17 dreadnoughts, each a city-sized mass of weaponized metal and energy projectors arranged in a perfect geometric pattern designed to maximize firing efficiency. On the command deck of the flagship, Arch-General Carex watched the approaching blue planet with facial patterns cycling between determination and regret. He had never visited Earth, but he had studied it extensively in preparation for this mission. A water world, teeming with life in a way that seemed almost wasteful, home to a species that had, in mere decades, disrupted galactic order that had stood for millennia.
Final approach in 15 minutes,
reported his second-in-command.
Earth's defensive systems are activating, but they're laughably primitive. Nothing that can penetrate our shields.
Any response to our ultimatum?
The Arch-General asked.
No, sir. They must know resistance is futile.
Carex's facial patterns shifted to a deep, solemn blue.
I take no pleasure in this. Log that in the official record. The humans were reckless, not malicious, but the safety of the galaxy demands their removal.
Yes, sir,
the officer responded, though his patterns betrayed skepticism. Many in the fleet privately wondered if this action was truly necessary or if it was merely fear driving them to genocide.
Sir,
called another officer, his patterns flashing urgent yellow.
We're detecting a strange energy signature from Earth. It's unlike anything in our database.
Weapon?
Carex asked sharply.
Unknown. It's not directed at us. It appears to be broadcasting, omnidirectionally.
The Arch-General frowned.
Show me.
The main view screen shifted to display a visual representation of the energy pattern emanating from Earth. It wasn't the focused beam of a weapon or the shield signature of a defensive system. It was a complex, pulsating field of mathematical expressions, symbols flowing and changing in patterns that seemed almost alive.
What is this? Carex demanded. Some kind of communication attempt.
Before anyone could answer, the ship's systems flickered. The lights dimmed momentarily, then returned to full brightness. The view screen froze, then displayed a message in perfect Threx script.
Watching.
The message vanished as quickly as it had appeared, leaving the bridge crew staring at the screen in confusion and fear.
It's here,
Carex whispered, his facial patterns paling to ashen gray.
The entity is watching us.
Sir, his second-in-command said hesitantly.
Perhaps we should reconsider. No!
Carex's patterns flashed defiant red.
This only confirms the urgency of our mission. The humans have allied themselves with this thing. We must strike now, before it's too late.
He turned to the weapons officer.
Prepare all dreadnoughts for simultaneous fire. Target Earth's major population centers. We end this now.
Back in the underground facility, Leo stood at the center of a whirlwind of activity. Scientists and engineers rushed around him, making final adjustments to the array of equipment that now dominated the main laboratory. At the heart of it all stood what Leo had dubbed the Translator, a quantum computing system designed to convert abstract human concepts into mathematical expressions. "Are we sure this will work?" asked General Tomlin, who had arrived to witness the attempt herself. "We're staking the fate of humanity on a glorified math experiment. Not just math," Emmy corrected, joining them. "We're creating a new language, a way to express concepts the eldest might never have encountered before." "Such as?" the general asked. Leo and Emmy exchanged glances. Contradiction," Leo said. "Paradox, the ability to hold two opposing ideas in mind simultaneously and still function." "Humor," Emmy added. "The capacity to find joy in the unexpected, the inappropriate, the absurd." "Hope," Leo continued. "The irrational but persistent belief that things can improve even in the face of overwhelming evidence to the contrary." "And most importantly," Emmy finished, "creativity. Not just solving problems, but redefining them, seeing not what is, but what could be." General Tomlin looked skeptical. "And you think expressing these concepts mathematically will, impress this cosmic entity enough to save us from extinction?" "Essentially, yes," Leo admitted. "The eldest said it finds us fascinating, that we're an anomaly. We're banking on the idea that our anomalous nature is valuable enough to preserve." "It's a hell of a gamble," Tomlin said grimly. "Gambling is another uniquely human trait," Leo pointed out with a wry smile. "High risk, high reward." The general shook her head but stepped back, allowing them to proceed. "The Threx fleet will be in optimal firing range in less than 10 minutes. Whatever you're going to do it fast." Leo nodded, turning to the assembled team. "Let's make some cosmic noise!" He moved to the central control station, where a simplified interface waited for his input. The actual calculations would be performed by the quantum computers, but the core concepts, the essence of what made humanity unique, had to come from humans themselves. Leo placed his hands on the interface, and holographic displays sprang to life around him, showing neural patterns, emotional responses, mathematical representations of abstract concepts. Emmy joined him, placing her hands alongside his. One by one, the other scientists stepped forward, adding their perspectives, their unique human viewpoints. "Everyone focus," Leo instructed. "Think about what makes us human, not just the noble parts. Everything. Our contradictions, our irrationality, our ability to be both selfish and selfless, cruel and kind, foolish and wise." The displays responded to their thoughts, the patterns becoming more complex, more chaotic, yet somehow more coherent. The translator began to convert these inputs into mathematical expressions, not static equations, but dynamic, evolving patterns that captured the ever-changing nature of human consciousness. "It's working," Emmy breathed, watching as the system began broadcasting their mathematical message outward. "But will it be enough? Will it reach the eldest in time?" As if in answer, the facility's lights flickered, then went out completely. Emergency lighting activated, bathing everything in a soft red glow. The translator's displays remained active, but they were changing, shifting to display patterns that hadn't originated from any human input. "It's responding," Leo whispered. The air in the center of the lab began to distort, bending light in impossible ways. The temperature dropped sharply, frost forming on nearby surfaces, and then, with a sound like reality itself tearing at the seams, the eldest appeared. Its form was different this time, less an attempt at human approximation, more a swirling vortex of mathematical expressions made manifest. Symbols and equations orbited a central point of brilliant light, forming a rough approximation of a humanoid shape that seemed to exist in more dimensions than the human eye could process.
Your equation is unexpected,
it said, its voice resonating directly in their minds.
You express concepts I have not encountered in this form before.
That's kind of our thing, Leo said, stepping forward despite the overwhelming aura of power emanating from the entity. Humans specialize in the unexpected.
Yes,
the eldest agreed, its form shifting in what might have been amusement.
I have been observing your response to the Threx threat. Most species would attempt defense or surrender. You choose to communicate.
We're trying to solve a problem,
Emmy said, joining Leo.
and the problem isn't really the Threx. It's you.
The entity's form pulsed with what might have been surprise.
Explain.
You're curious about us, Leo said.
You want to understand what makes us different, but your mere presence in our reality is causing chaos. The Threx are about to wipe us out because they're terrified of what you represent.
Their fear is irrelevant,
the eldest dismissed.
They cannot harm me, nor you if I choose to prevent it.
But that's not the point, Leo pressed.
The galaxy was in balance before I solved that equation. Now it's not. And while having a cosmic entity taking an interest in us is flattering, I guess, it's also massively disruptive.
You wish me to depart?
The entity's form contracted slightly, as if offended.
No,
Emmy said quickly.
we wish to understand. The Vothari created their equation to divert your attention elsewhere. They saw something in you that frightened them enough to remove themselves from existence.
Not from existence,
the eldest corrected.
From your plane of reality. They evolved beyond it.
But they didn't want other species following them too quickly,
Leo said, understanding dawning.
That's why they left the equation as a warning, not an invitation. They reached a point where they could transcend, but they recognized that most species weren't ready for that knowledge.
Correct,
the eldest confirmed.
The Vothari understood that evolution must proceed at its own pace. They created the equation as a test, one they did not expect to be solved for many more millennia.
And then I came along and screwed up their timetable, Leo said ruefully.
Yes, you solved what should have been unsolvable at your current stage of development. This is why you fascinate me. You are an anomaly in the pattern.
See, that's the thing about humans, Leo said, a slow smile spreading across his face. We're basically walking anomalies. We don't follow predictable patterns. We leap to conclusions. We make intuitive jumps that defy logic. We believe in things we can't prove and doubt things that are proven.
We contradict ourselves,
Emmy added.
We can hold opposing views simultaneously. We can laugh at tragedy and cry at beauty.
We're messy, Leo concluded. Chaotic, unpredictable. And that's exactly why we solved your equation when no one else could. Not because we're smarter or more evolved, but because we don't think like everyone else. The eldest's form shifted, expanding and contracting as if considering these words.
You suggest your chaos is your strength.
Exactly, Leo said. And if you're really interested in studying us, in understanding what makes us unique, then wiping us out or forcing us to evolve too quickly would defeat the purpose. You'd be destroying the very thing that interests you. The entity was silent for what felt like an eternity, its form pulsing with complex patterns that seemed to reflect deep consideration. Finally, it spoke.
Your argument has merit. The pattern you represent is valuable, worthy of preservation in its current state.
Relief washed over Leo, but it was short-lived.
The Threx, however, do not share this view. They approach with destruction in mind.
Leo swallowed hard. Can you stop them?
I can,
the eldest said.
But I will not.
What?
Emmy exclaimed.
You just said we were worth preserving!
You are,
the entity agreed.
but my intervention would alter the pattern of your development. If your chaos is truly your strength, then you must demonstrate it. Solve this problem as you solved the equation, unexpectedly.
And with that cryptic statement, the eldest's form began to dissolve, particles of light scattering like dust in a breeze.
Wait!
Leo called desperately.
You can't just leave! They're going to destroy Earth!
I will be watching.
The entity's voice echoed as it faded from view.
Show me what humanity can do.
And then it was gone, leaving behind only a lingering chill in the air and a sense of cosmic abandonment. Well, Leo said after a long moment of stunned silence. That could have gone better. General Tomlin stepped forward, her expression grim.
The Thrax will be in firing position in less than 5 minutes. Without the entity's help, Earth's defenses won't last 30 seconds against their weapons.
So we're dead, Dr. Reed said flatly. All this was for nothing. No, Leo said, his mind racing. The eldest said it would be watching. It wants to see how we handle this, how we solve an unsolvable problem.
Leo,
Emmy said gently.
There's no equation that can stop 17 warships.
Maybe not, Leo agreed. But who says we need an equation? He turned to General Tomlin. Can you get me a direct communication line to the Threx flagship? The general blinked in surprise.
Yes, but...
Do it, Leo said with such conviction that she immediately began issuing orders to her staff.
What are you planning?
Emmy asked as technicians rushed to establish the connection. Leo's eyes gleamed with a mixture of inspiration and desperation. The eldest said our chaos is our strength, our unpredictability. So let's be unpredictable.
How?
By doing the last thing anyone would expect, Leo said, moving to the communication station as it came online. I'm going to tell the truth. On the command deck of the Threx flagship, Arch-General Carex was moments away from giving the order to fire when his communications officer's facial patterns flashed urgent purple.
Sir, we're receiving a transmission from Earth. Direct communication request.
Carex hesitated. The human homeworld was minutes from destruction. What could they possibly have to say that would matter now? Curiosity won out over pragmatism.
Put it through.
The main view screen shifted to show a human male with disheveled hair and intense eyes. Carex recognized him immediately from intelligence briefings. Dr. Leo Weber, the human who had solved the Vothari equation.
Arch-General Carex,
the human said without preamble. I understand you're about to destroy my planet because you think we've allied ourselves with a cosmic horror. Carex's facial expressions betrayed his surprise at the direct approach.
You do not deny the entity's existence?
No, I don't, Weber replied. In fact, I just finished talking to it. It's called the Eldest, and it's been around since before the stars. And you're right to be afraid of it. It's beyond comprehension and potentially catastrophic to our understanding of reality. This frank admission caught Carex off guard. He had expected denials, pleas, perhaps threats, not calm acknowledgement of the very danger his fleet had come to eliminate.
If you understand the threat,
Carex said carefully,
then you must understand why we cannot allow this connection to continue. The entity has chosen your species. It threatens all sentient life.
Actually, that's where you're wrong, Weber said. It hasn't chosen us. It's studying us. There's a difference.
Explain,
Carex demanded, his curiosity now fully engaged. The Eldest is curious about humanity because we think differently, Weber said. We're chaotic, unpredictable. We'd make intuitive leaps that defy logic. That's how I solved the equation. Not because I'm a genius, but because I wasn't trying to solve it. I saw a pattern and fixed it without thinking about the consequences. Carex's facial patterns cycled through thoughtful blues.
And this interests the entity?
Apparently, yes, Weber confirmed. It finds our unpredictability valuable, worth preserving.
All the more reason to eliminate the threat,
Carex concluded.
If this entity values your chaos, it cannot have benevolent intentions for the ordered galaxy.
Or maybe, Weber countered, it recognizes that evolution requires both order and chaos. The Vothari understood this. That's why they created the equation, not to keep the Eldest trapped, but to keep other species from evolving too quickly. They were protecting us, not from it, but from ourselves. Carex remained silent, processing this perspective. Look, Weber continued, I get it. You're scared. I'm scared too, but destroying Earth won't solve anything. The Eldest exists beyond our reality. Killing us won't make it go away. It'll just move its attention elsewhere. Maybe to the Threx. Carex's facial patterns paled slightly at this suggestion. But there's another option, Weber said. One that benefits everyone. Work with us. Study this entity together. The Eldest is watching right now, waiting to see what we'll do. It's letting this play out without interference because it wants to see how we handle crisis, how we solve problems.
And how do you propose to solve this one?
Carex asked, his tone still skeptical but less hostile. Weber smiled, a disarmingly genuine expression. By suggesting something completely unexpected. A human-Threx scientific alliance dedicated to understanding cosmic entities, pooling our resources, our different perspectives, your caution and order, our intuition and chaos. Together we might actually learn something valuable, something that could benefit both species.
You propose cooperation?
Carex's facial patterns displayed clear disbelief.
After we arrived to destroy your world.
That's the beauty of it, Weber said. It's the last thing anyone would expect, exactly the kind of chaotic, irrational decision that makes humans interesting to the Eldest, and exactly the kind of strategic pivot that might impress a cosmic entity enough to keep paying attention to us instead of moving on to experiment with someone else. Carex fell silent, his facial patterns cycling through complex emotions as he considered the human's words. Finally, he spoke.
You are either the most brilliant diplomat I've ever encountered, or completely insane.
Weber laughed, a sound of genuine amusement that seemed entirely inappropriate to the gravity of the situation. Probably both. That's kind of our thing. Against all protocol and his own better judgment, Carex found his facial patterns shifting to amused indigo. This human was either going to save the galaxy or destroy it, and Carex wasn't entirely sure which outcome he found more intriguing.
Stand down, weapons,
he ordered, to the visible shock of his bridge crew.
Maintain position.
He turned back to the screen.
Dr. Weber, I will consider your proposal, but be warned, at the first sign that this entity poses a direct threat to galactic stability, we will not hesitate to act.
Fair enough, Weber agreed. Though I suggest we define direct threat very carefully. Cosmic entities don't exactly follow the same rulebook as the rest of us.
Indeed,
Carex acknowledged.
We will establish a joint monitoring protocol. Our scientists will contact yours within the hour.
Looking forward to it, Weber said, his relief evident despite his attempt at nonchalance. Oh, and Arch-General? Thanks for not blowing up my planet. I'm kind of attached to it. The transmission ended, leaving Carex staring at the view screen, wondering if he had just made the most important decision of his life, or the biggest mistake in Threk's history. Either way, he suspected, things were about to become very interesting. In the underground facility, the tension broke like a dam. Scientists who had been bracing for imminent death now found themselves laughing, crying, hugging one another in relief. General Tomlin was already on a secure line to the UN Security Council, reporting the unexpected diplomatic breakthrough. Leo slumped into a chair, the adrenaline that had carried him through the confrontation finally ebbing. Emmy sat beside him, her expression a mixture of admiration and exasperation.
A human-Threk scientific alliance,
she said, shaking her head.
You literally talked the most paranoid, militaristic species in the galaxy out of destroying Earth by suggesting we become research partners.
It seemed like the human thing to do, Leo said with a tired smile. Completely irrational, potentially catastrophic, but just crazy enough to work.
The eldest was right about one thing,
Emmy mused.
We are unpredictable.
That's our superpower, Leo agreed. We don't just think outside the box, we forget there was a box in the first place. The air in the room seemed to thicken suddenly, a subtle pressure change that made their ears pop. A faint, shimmering distortion appeared above them, not taking a definite form, but clearly present. I think our cosmic friend is back, Leo murmured, looking up at the distortion. No visible manifestation appeared this time, but a voice resonated in their minds, softer than before, almost contemplative.
Unexpected. Fascinating. Your species continues to defy prediction.
We aim to please, Leo replied to the air above him. Or at least to surprise.
You chose cooperation over conflict, creation over destruction. This is rare, worthy of continued observation.
Happy to entertain, Leo said dryly. Though if you could maybe tone down the reality distortions while you're watching, they're freaking people out. A sound like distant laughter echoed in their minds.
Your requests, like your solutions, are unexpected. I will consider them.
That's all we ask,
Emmy said.
A little consideration. It goes a long way in any relationship, even cosmic ones.
Relationship,
the voice mused.
An interesting concept. The Vothari sought to avoid me. You seek to engage me. This difference alone justifies my interest.
Just don't expect consistency, Leo warned. Humans are notoriously fickle. We might try to avoid you tomorrow.
I anticipate your contradictions with interest.
The pressure in the room eased, the distortion fading until nothing remained but the lingering sense of having been in the presence of something vast and unfathomable. For a long moment, neither Leo nor Emmy spoke, processing the implications of everything that had happened. Finally, Leo broke the silence. "So," he said casually, "I'm thinking of writing a paper on this. Cosmic entities and you. A survival guide. Think nature would publish it?" Emmy burst into laughter, the slightly hysterical laughter of someone who has stared extinction in the face and somehow lived to tell the tale. "Only if you include a methodology section that explains how you accidentally solved an unfathomable equation with a pen and napkin." "Hey, sometimes the best discoveries happen by accident," Leo defended. "True," Emmy conceded, her laughter subsiding to a warm smile. "Though most accidental discoveries don't nearly end the world." "Go big or go home," Leo said with a shrug. Then, more seriously, "What happens now?" Emmy considered the question. "We're about to become the center of galactic attention. Half the species out there will want to worship us. The other half will be watching us for signs of cosmic corruption. The Threx will be monitoring our every move, looking for any excuse to bring back their dreadnoughts. And meanwhile, an entity older than the universe will be studying us like fascinating lab specimens." "So, business as usual for humanity," Leo said with a crooked smile. "Stumbling our way through cosmic significance while trying not to blow ourselves up in the process." "Pretty much," Emmy agreed. Leo reached for a nearby tablet, his fingers already tapping out equations. "In that case, I've got some ideas for the next impossible problem we should tackle." "Leo," Emmy groaned. "Haven't you caused enough cosmic chaos for one day?" He looked up, his eyes bright with the same irrepressible curiosity that had led him to solve the Vothari equation in the first place. "Are you kidding? We've just established first contact with a being that exists outside conventional reality. The scientific possibilities are endless." "You're incorrigible," Emmy said, but there was fondness in her tone. "I'm human," Leo corrected. "We're all incorrigible. That's what makes us special." As if in agreement, the lights flickered once, a subtle acknowledgement from an invisible observer. Somewhere beyond the veil of conventional reality, the eldest continued to watch, fascinated by these chaotic, contradictory beings who had accidentally opened a door sealed for millennia, and then, rather than fleeing from what came through, had invited it in for a conversation. The galaxy would never be the same, but then, with humans involved, nothing ever stayed the same for long anyway. 6 months later, Leo found himself at the same diplomatic compound where he had first solved the equation, nursing a drink at the same bar. The Summit for Cosmic Research and Cooperation was in full swing, with representatives from 26 species mingling and sharing research on what was now officially termed trans-dimensional entities. In the center of the Grand Hall, a joint human-Threx science team presented their findings on stable methods of communicating with the eldest without causing reality distortions. The Olmari delegation, having abandoned their brief worship of humanity, now focused on developing a philosophical framework for understanding beings that existed beyond conventional time-space. The Ivrin, true to their nature, had already published 67 papers on what they termed the Weber effect, the unique human capacity for intuitive problem-solving that defied logical progression.
"Dr. Weber," said a metallic voice beside him, "I thought I might find you here."
Leo turned to see Arch-General Carex, his facial patterns glowing with formal blues and greens. "Arch-General, finally decided to come see this circus for yourself?"
"I felt it prudent to observe firsthand,"
Carex said, settling onto a seat designed for Threx physiology.
"Our remote monitoring can only tell us so much."
"And?" Leo prompted. "What's your assessment? Are we all doomed, or just mostly doomed?" Carex's facial patterns shifted to what Leo had come to recognize as amusement.
"Neither.
perhaps. The entity's interactions have been contained. Your scientists have shown surprising restraint.
Don't sound so shocked, Leo said dryly. We can be responsible, occasionally, when the fate of reality is at stake. Carex made a sound that might have been a laugh.
Your species continues to confound expectation. The Conclave is still debating whether to classify humans as a protected intellectual resource or as a galactic security threat.
Why not both? Leo suggested. We're good at multitasking. The Thrax's patterns shifted in what might have been resignation.
Indeed, which brings me to my purpose in seeking you out. The High Command has a proposal.
I'm listening, Leo said, taking a sip of his drink.
We wish to establish a permanent joint research facility,
Carex explained.
A place where the most brilliant minds of both our species can work together to understand the cosmic boundaries your equation breached.
Leo raised an eyebrow. You want to put Threx and human scientists in the same building? Voluntarily?
The combination of your intuitive approach and our methodical analysis has proven surprisingly effective,
Carex admitted.
The High Command believes this partnership could yield significant benefits.
As long as you can keep an eye on us, Leo added knowingly. Carex's patterns flashed brief confirmation.
Monitoring is a secondary benefit.
At least you're honest, Leo said with a laugh. All right, I'll bring it to our people. But fair warning, human scientists can be a handful.
So we have observed,
Carex said dryly.
Your Dr. Chesters has already requested permission to attempt communication with the entity using something called memes. My cultural advisors were unable to explain the concept satisfactorily.
Leo nearly choked on his drink. Oh God, please tell me you said no.
The request is under review,
Carex said, his patterns betraying mild confusion.
Is this inappropriate?
Let's just say if the eldest learns about internet culture, we might have bigger problems than cosmic interest, Leo said, trying not to laugh at the mental image of Emmy showing eldritch memes to a being older than time. Before Carex could respond, the lights throughout the facility dimmed momentarily, a now familiar sign of their cosmic observer's attention. The conversations in the hall faltered briefly, then resumed with a determined normalcy that fooled no one.
It's watching again,
Carex noted, his patterns betraying a lingering unease. It's always watching, Leo replied with a shrug. We're its favorite reality show.
And that does not concern you?
Carex asked. Leo considered the question seriously. Sometimes, but then I remember that, for the first time in history, the galaxy species are actually working together on something bigger than trade routes and territorial disputes. We're reaching for understanding beyond our conventional limits. If it took a cosmic entity's attention to make that happen, he shrugged. Maybe it's not the worst thing. Carex studied him, facial patterns cycling through thoughtful blues.
You humans possess an unusual perspective.
So I've been told, Leo said with a smile, raising his glass. To unusual perspectives, Archgeneral. May they continue to save us from ourselves. After a moment's hesitation, Carex raised his own drink in acknowledgement.
To the unexpected, Dr. Weber, and to whatever comes next.
As their glasses clinked, the lights flickered once more. A cosmic entity's approximation of a toast, perhaps. Or simply a reminder that in a universe of infinite possibilities, the most interesting ones often came from the most unexpected sources. And humanity, for better or worse, specialized in the unexpected. Leo just hoped the universe was ready for what came next, because if there was one thing humans excelled at beyond all others, it was finding new and interesting ways to break the rules, even the cosmic ones. Especially the cosmic ones.